The Secret Santa Squad. It was the week before Christmas, and for the students at Maplewood High School, the holidays couldn't come soon enough. The classrooms buzzed with excitement, filled with whispers about presents, snow days, and family gatherings. But for a small group of friends, this Christmas felt different. Jessie, the quiet leader of the group, had an idea that was starting to take shape in her mind. As she stared out of the window during homeroom, watching the snowflakes fall gently to the ground, she couldn't help but feel a tug in her heart. Christmas was about more than receiving gifts. It was about giving. And she knew exactly what they needed to do. "I have an idea," Jessie said one afternoon after school as she sat at the corner table in the cafeteria with her best friends, Liam, Casey, and Sarah. They were used to Jessie's big ideas. She was the kind of person who believed that if you could dream something, you could do it too. But this idea was different. "What if we do something to make a real difference this Christmas?" Jessie asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Liam raised an eyebrow, his usual cynicism making him skeptical. "Like what? Throw a party? Donate a few dollars to some charity?" "Better," Jessie replied with a grin. "What if we dressed up as Santa and delivered gifts to people who really need them, like orphans, homeless people, and families struggling to make ends meet? We could bring a little bit of Christmas magic to them." Casey, who was always the first to embrace new ideas, grinned. "I love it. It's perfect. We'll be like Santa's little helpers." Sarah, the more practical one of the group, tapped her pen on the table thoughtfully. "But how are we going to get the gifts? And where do we even find people to give them to?" Jessie had already thought of that. "We can start by asking around. Maybe the local shelter, or a charity that helps kids. We can even ask our families to donate. We can pool our money, and maybe we can buy a few extra things ourselves." Liam, who had a soft spot for the underdog despite his tough exterior, nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. This could actually be fun." The plan was simple but ambitious. They would spend the next few days collecting donations, organizing the gifts, and getting ready for the big night. And then, on Christmas Eve, they would dress up as Santa, complete with red suits, beards, and jolly laughs, and deliver the gifts to as many people as they could. The next few days were a blur of excitement and preparation. The group worked together to make sure everything was perfect. They spent hours at the local dollar store, picking up toys, clothes, and warm blankets. They even convinced their families to help with donations. Liam's older brother had a contact at a local shelter, and soon they had a list of people to visit. As Christmas Eve approached, the group met at Jessie's house to finalize their plans. Jessie had found a set of Santa suits online that they had pooled their money to buy. They set up a makeshift workshop in Jessie's garage, sorting the gifts into bags labeled for specific families and individuals. "I still can't believe we're doing this," Sarah said as she helped tie a ribbon around a gift. "This is actually happening." "I know, right?" Casey said, her eyes sparkling. "It feels like we're part of something bigger than ourselves." Liam grinned, holding up his Santa beard in front of his face. "I've always wanted to wear one of these. Might just start a new tradition." When the sun dipped below the horizon, the group gathered in Jessie's living room, each of them wearing their Santa suit. They looked ridiculous, especially when they tried to mimic Santa's jolly laugh, but none of them cared. They were ready to bring some Christmas cheer to people who needed it the most. "All right," Jessie said, her eyes scanning the group. "Let's go spread some holiday magic." Their first stop was a local homeless shelter. When they arrived, the building was modest, with a worn sign outside that read, "Willow's Hope Shelter." Inside, there was a warm but simple atmosphere, filled with the smells of stew and the soft murmur of voices. The people there didn't expect visitors, especially not a group of teenagers dressed up as Santa. As they walked through the door, the room fell silent for a moment. And then, the smiles started to appear. "Hoo ho ho!" Jessie boomed, her voice a little shakier than she'd expected. The group had rehearsed their lines and gestures, but it was harder than they thought to keep their composure in front of the people who needed them most. Still, the sight of Fort Santas walking in, bags of presents in hand, was enough to melt anyone's heart. A woman who was standing by the door gasped, Are you real?" Liam, trying his best to sound like Santa, chuckled and waved. "Of course we're real. Santa's helpers have to do their part too. The woman, whose name was Mrs. Green, smiled through her tears. She had been running the shelter for years, and though she had seen a lot of kindness from others, the surprise of seeing young people so eager to help made her heart swell. "What can we do to help?" Casey asked, her voice sincere. Mrs. Green led them to a room where several families were gathered. They began handing out the gifts: warm blankets for the elderly, toys for the children, and food baskets for the families. Each time someone's face lit up with surprise, a little piece of their doubt about the world seemed to disappear. One little girl, no older than 7, stared at the stuffed bear Casey had just handed her. Her face broke into a grin so wide, it was impossible not to smile along with her. "Thank you, Santa," she whispered. Casey's heart melted. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Jessie, who had been standing off to the side, felt a lump form in her throat. She had imagined that this would be a good thing to do, but she hadn't realized just how much it would impact her. This wasn't about giving gifts. It was about the connection between people, the shared humanity. The group didn't stop there. They continued to visit several more places that night: a local orphanage, a family in need, and even an elderly man who lived alone in a rundown apartment. Every time they delivered a gift, their hearts felt fuller, their smiles brighter. They were tired, exhausted even, but it didn't matter. The joy they brought to others was worth every minute of it. At the orphanage, a group of children ran up to them, shouting excitedly to Santa, "Santa, you came." The caretakers at the orphanage were moved to tears, too, as they watched the children's faces light up when they were handed gifts. Some of the children had never received anything for Christmas, and for them, this moment was nothing short of magical. By the time the clock struck midnight, the group had delivered the last of their gifts. They were all exhausted, their Santa suits sweaty and wrinkled, but the joy they felt was indescribable. As they stood in front of Jessie's house, looking up at the stars, Liam broke the silence. "Do you think they really knew who we were?" he asked, a grin playing at the corners of his mouth. "I don't think it matters," Jessie replied, her voice soft but full of conviction. "What matters is that we showed up. We made a difference tonight. That's what Christmas is about." Sarah nodded. "I agree. This was the best Christmas I've ever had." Casey threw her arms around the group. "Next year we do this again. But maybe next time we'll bring even more gifts." Jessie smiled, her heart full. "I think we've started something great." As the group stood there, basking in the glow of their shared experience, they realized something important. The true magic of Christmas wasn't in the gifts, but in the way they had brought joy to others. The smiles, the laughter, the gratitude, it all made every second worth it. And from that moment on, they knew they would carry that spirit of giving with them always, not just during Christmas, but every day of the year. In the end, it wasn't about being Santa. It was about becoming the kind of people who made the world a little brighter, one act of kindness at a time. And that, they realized, was the true gift of Christmas.